Hello, hello, hello. I'm going to bust a rhyme. Okay, hello. I'm Dezso, and I'm showing a flying motorcycle out by the gate 5. So I've done these talks before where I showed how we built it, etc. That's boring. It's like 5 years ago. So we built this thing. My friend Craig and I was here somewhere. We made it 12 years ago. It's a flying motorcycle. It flew on its first attempt and every time since then. And the objective I had was I want to be able to travel with this thing, take off and go. So since then, though, over the years, I've learned a lot about what flying cars are, what they do, and what they do for me, and what they don't do. So one of the challenges I had with this one is very complicated and wasn't completely reliable. I couldn't just take off on a trip with it the way I wanted it to. So I kept doing development, and one of the things I wanted to do in life in general is kind of be involved in something that I fell into. The people I know that are very successful, in my opinion, I ask them, like, how did you get into this? They're like, I don't know, I was doing this and this, and suddenly I just kind of fell into it. And then they're really rich and really happy. I thought, well, I'm just going to chill out, stop trying, be very non-ambitious, and see what I fall into. So what I'm doing now is I'm starting the Flying Car Racing League. So if this works, then I'm going to show you how to design a flying car that you can race. Okay, so Flying Car Racing League, that's my new sport. So we have a new motorsport. There's a lot of very bright people here today, sort of a little brain trust of friends, so it'll be fun from here on. You'll be like, oh yeah, that was Maker Faire. Everybody kind of got together and started this sport. So it's good to have a little idea about what we're doing. So the idea what I'm starting with is we're going to race flying cars from El Mirage Dry Lake. We're going to fly around the lake a few times for about 40 miles. We're going to land, and then we're going to hit the highway and drive up to Vegas. Okay? So that's the course. You can wrap your head around what the objective is. And then once you know what you need as a mission for your vehicle, then you can start designing your vehicle or finding them. So I've done this trip a few times, and it's pretty harrowing. But there's a nice stretch of road. It's really pretty between the desert and Vegas, like 140 miles with just one stop sign. It's really important when you're racing and just basically racing at freeway speeds. So this is what it looks like on the desert. So if you have a flying car, you can join my club. If you don't have a flying car, I'm going to help you with that. So there are about 100 good ones in the world, and a lot of, I know enough of them that we're going to start a small group of people. There'll be 5 or 10 the first year. It's going to grow like Burning Man, maybe 20 the second year, 200 by the third year. That's realistic. Anyway, so this is my little hangar here. I keep my stuff there, and then I can go out on this lake and we can fly around, and if for any reason we have a problem, we just land. So all the flying is going to take place initially on this dry lake. If any of you have been up to Burning Man, it's a very similar situation. This lake, however, is federally registered as a place to test and test land speed cars and aircraft. So all you do is you don't have to go and get permission. Any day of the year, you can go out there and race your flying car or your land speed car. Where we're going to end up is a place called the El Dorado Drone Port that a friend of mine's building. It's an airport for drones. Okay, and the reason we're going to do this is on both ends of the course we can fly drones. So one way that we're going to get kids involved in flying cars is we're going to let them design their own drone versions of flying cars so they can start wrapping their heads around what exactly it takes to both fly and drive and how to design for that. All right, so there's off-the-shelf ones you can buy. This is just a little simple Parrot drone. It drives on the street and it flies in the air. So that's something, it's like not a big boundary of entry, okay? I want everybody to enjoy this. So right away you can get your head wrapped around, oh yeah, that thing will roll and fly. So we'll do some races in El Mirage. And we're not going to race the distance. We'll do a second set over into Vegas for the Vegas area kids. All right, so this is a simple kind of machine. There's one actually traveling around. I don't know if he came here, but there's one that's very similar. This is Thomas Senkel. He's a pretty famous guy because he flew a yoga ball about 5 years ago. I don't know if you've seen a video, about 85 million views of this. A guy sitting on a yoga ball with a very nerdy helmet, and he took off with this quadcopter thing. That led to him starting a company called Volocopter. Anyways, he was at our shop, and he saw my bike. He's like, wow, I need a flying car. So he built this. Very simple, not hard to do. It flies through the air, drives on the ground. Perfectly street legal, and he's going to come out and race us. You can also go back into the archives and pick an old one out. This is, Ed Sweeney bought this on, like, eBay, basically. But this is an old 50s flying car. They're actually worth a lot now. The guy didn't know what he was selling. But there's about 100 of these good ones. And I suggest that if any of you are working with museums, get in the museums and find these old machines and get them running and bring them out and race them, okay? There's never been a gallery for this, okay? If you get one thing out of this talk, I want you to know, there will never be a flying car made for the market until after they have been raced, okay? Because it's required to race them in order to do development. It works with everything. I don't care if it's skateboards or tennis rackets. And the other thing is, we know we're going to race them before anybody's even talking about bringing anything real to market in any significant way. Okay, what I'm showing you now is a big game changer. It's always good to be on the latest edge of tech. So this is a very simple off-the-shelf electric motor. It costs about $500, weighs about 40 pounds. This thing will put out 60 horsepower. This is the game changer, okay? This is why flying cars used to not happen and they're about to. Now, the thing that's very important about an electric motor, as I'll show you in a second, the challenge is transmissions. An electric motor will go from 0 RPM up to about 8,000. So you don't need a transmission in between. You don't need any complicated stuff. You come look at my bike, it looks like a wristwatch, all right? Very challenging thing to do to make that. So this is what I have on the bike. And we're over at gate 5 if you want to come see this thing. So we spent a lot of time thinking about how we're going to do this. And the challenge is, for instance, when you get in your car, what do? You start your car, right? Why is that? Well, because the thing is not going to turn that wheel until the engine's already spinning fast, right? Well, with an electric motor, that's not the case. So you can take all this, which is my biggest challenge in life, is my flying car transmission. Most people don't have that problem. For 12 years, it's been my nightmare. Larry Page isn't living with that problem. I am. So I know that I want to get this out of my life, right? This has got to go. So what we've done is we've designed... Oh, is this showing up there? No, this picture's too big. Anyways, so this is too bad because this picture's supposed to be smaller. Anyways, what this shows is with a simple electric motor, you run a torque tube and then you just run a figure-8 belt. That's it. You just twist the belt and you go down and turn the rear wheel. Sorry, it didn't show up in the photo here. So Joe Ben Bivert's a very smart guy. He's up in Scotts Valley area. He's making this aircraft, which is his version of a flying car. Bless him for that. It's got a lot of airplane, it's got a lot of propellers and a lot of motors. Now, here's the thing that we just told you that he's missing, and a lot of people are missing this, is that same motor that's pointing up with a propeller. It doesn't matter if it's electric or if it's gasoline, because as long as it's spinning slow enough, that thing's not going to fly, right? My friend, the same thing's happening with Kitty Hawk. They're using these electric motors, and which are not very powerful compared to gas ones. They just don't work as well. But they're using them to point downward to lift themselves vertically. They're addicted to this idea of lifting vertically. Well, this is Ivo Zdarsky, very brilliant inventor. He's been running the same thing for like 15 years, 20 years this guy's been flying it with using weed eater engines. And that's because as long as a weed eater isn't spinning really fast, you just turn the throttle up and fly, okay? But a lot of people, when they have a hammer, that's the thing they use. So if people have some knowledge of software, some knowledge of electronics, they stay in that world. Ivo's a brilliant engineer. He doesn't care if it's electronic or digital or gasoline or whatever. But what they're not doing is they're not using the advantage, which is to drive you down the road when the weather's bad, when you decide you don't want to fly all that way, when there's a tornado and you're going to land. Those are the times you want to get on the road. None of this stuff's going to fly in a bad weather. And as you saw with the last picture, oh my gosh, they're flying over water. Why? Because for $150 million, you cannot figure out a safer place to fly than over the water. In fact, there's nowhere safe to fly this thing except over the water. That doesn't work for me. We want to go to Vegas, right? I mean, that's where the crime is. There's a really good slot machine there, too, by Super Ultra, whatever. I'm going to go. Pal V, this is a company. I talked to these guys before I started building mine. Very similar in design. It's a gyroplane and a motorcycle, essentially, but it has two engines in it because they couldn't figure out how are we going to fly and drive with the same engine. They couldn't do it. It's very important to pass smog laws, okay? So right now, when you're building a flying car, number one consideration is you got to pass smog, okay? Pass smog. These guys couldn't do it with one engine, so they had to use two. So this is a very simple outline of what we're going to do. We'll take that simple electric motor, we'll stick it on a little simple race vehicle with some wings, and that'll drive a propeller that sits in the back. It's also going to have a very simple figure-8 belt, and it's going to drive a rear wheel. And the reason I'm showing you this stuff is because we're crowdsourcing all the engineering. We're throwing it out there. We're not keeping anything to ourselves. We're going to build these things. Our goal is to get to racing, okay? And I want to keep the prices so low it competes with BMX. You pull the wings off like surfboards. When you're watching the stuff landing here at SFO, all these planes, all their wings were bolted on before they left the factory. They've got turbo pumps out there. They've got flap packs. They've got electronics out into the wings. They keep all the fuel in the wings. We don't do any of that. We had a couple batteries on board. They don't change the weight at all. When you take off and land, they weigh the same. These airplanes have to be careful. They have to put the wings right in the middle, okay? So when that plane takes off, it gets running down the runway, it tilts up, and then it flies off. We don't have to do that. We can just run down the road on the street level, and when we're flying, we take off and we fly straight off the deck like that because we have our wings in the front. They're split up. And because we're using batteries, our center of gravity never changes over the course of the flight, okay? And so what I'm doing now is, this is my bike, as you'll see. We're kind of mocking everything up to make one that we're going to start testing it on the road first. And I've got an airplane I bought. It's cheap. I bought this thing used for 10 grand. You can absolutely buy an experimental plane for 10 grand and fly it through the air at like 200 miles an hour for 30, 40 miles to the gallon. Okay, that's been happening for a long time. There's a group called the Experimental Aircraft Association. There's 200,000 members worldwide. They're hell-bent on making sure that this is legal, safe, and most of the airplanes that fly in the United States are hand-built, okay? The numbers of planes that people build themselves and get in the air is more than double of what industry sells in the United States. And there's not very many planes in this country. There's 325,000, very, very few. There's 60 million cars that are made every year, okay, alternately. So once the aircraft start becoming automobiles, now you're going to start seeing more of them and have more use for it. So this is, like I said, this is just an airplane that was designed back in the 80s. And I picked this thing up used. What we're going to do, Nestor's here. Where is Nestor? Okay, Nestor's been working with a company called Local Motors most recently. He's helping me. We're going to use his crowd engineering site. We're basically bouncing off of each other. I'm bringing him some value from the project we're doing, and he's getting a group of engineers together. And we're going to start with this as a cornerstone. We're going to draw exactly kind of the center section of this, and we're going to let people design a new nose and a new tail, so that the whole thing kind of comes out like probably truncated photo coming up. There's the electrics, something closer to this. And this is a drawing that he did, and this is kind of where we're headed with the whole thing. Wings are great. You don't have to fly over water. You can just take off, and if the engine quits for any reason, your batteries run dead, you just push the nose down and you land. It's very important that aviators don't get killed, okay? I've been doing this my whole life. It's sort of like an apex. You do not want to get hurt doing it. You'll never justify it. And so our designs are designed around very robust systems and very robust ideas, but using new tech like I showed you. And the most important thing is with an electric motor, as I stated, instead of $100 an hour to fly, like it normally costs you for gas, now it's $1 an hour, okay? $1 to fly. And it will turn that rear wheel. So right now we're at the beginning of a flying car generation, and we're at the beginning of a flying car motorsport. So that's all starting here, and you saw it today, and that's all I got to say. Hooray! You got time left? Should I dance or take questions? I got 4 minutes. Who wants to know anything? Who's already building one or who has one?
You've got 2 minutes.
All right, I have 2 minutes. Who has a flying car here? Okay, you do. So you're going to be blending it together in a single machine. So I'm going to say a little bit about his. He has a paraglider wing. Okay, there's pluses and minuses to all types of approach. His paraglider wing always flies at the same speed. It's about 35 miles an hour. To help him out, we're going to fly early in the morning because once he gets a 20-mile-an-hour headwind, he's almost going to be flying backward, okay? So there's pluses and minuses to all of that. His system is very simple, it's very safe. If he has a problem with the motor, he's going to be able to land anywhere, which is great. There's a company called Maverick. You can go online, you can click and buy a flying car from Maverick. I think it's about 80 grand. And they'll send you a car with a big wing on it, and you can take it out and race it. Congratulations. Or you can build one like you've done. And like I said, I want to embrace all these ideas. So we have 3 divisions in the Flying Car League, okay? Number 1 is drone racing. These have to be able to fly a little bit, and they have to be able to drive on the ground and leave little tracks in the dirt. So that's so people can get involved in it very easily. Drones are just gateway drugs to kids that really want to have fighter jets, all right? So we want to have them involved. And then there's the electric version, because we really want to utilize the new technology, and we also want to build very, very clean machines, so we don't have to buy fuel for the rest of our lives. And then the 3rd division, which is what my bike will be racing in, is the unlimited class. Any idea is fine with me. Just bring it on, okay? And that includes these old planes that will never pass smog. They get to race. And that's those are the 3 divisions, and we keep it really simple so that we can get a lot of creativity and a lot of people involved. That's time. All right, thank you for listening to our exciting talk.